Hey, so what's going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and today I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about this. So this is going to be a commentary that's going on the second channel, not on the main channel, at least right now, because I have a lot of other stuff that's going on the main channel. I still want to talk about this, and this is a little bit of old news, but I still want to discuss my thoughts, my opinions on it, and kind of get your guys' input as well, too, and girls as well. But anyways, what I'm talking about here today is in regards to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, this has been shrouded in controversy for quite a while. First off, Final Fantasy VII came out on the PlayStation in 1997 and is hailed as one of the greatest defining RPGs of all time. Several people say it's the best game ever. A lot of people say it's way too overrated. Some people say it's not deserving of the spot. Some people think it's absolutely worth every bit of praise. Whatever it is, that opinion doesn't really matter right here. Point is, there's been one thing that cannot be debated. And what cannot be debated is that this not only changed RPGs for pretty much ever, but at the same time, this game has been begging to get remade for the past few generations. From the fans, and people have just, wanted to see a remake overall. From both people who have played through the game and people who have never played it and they don't want to play, the old school version of this. Now, it's been put on the PlayStation and the PC, but it's been remade on the PC as well too, so it can work on modern systems. It's also been re-released as a PlayStation 1 classic for the PSP, the PlayStation Vita, and the PS3, and since the PS2 is backwards compatible, it works on there as well. So people have been wanting this for a while, and even when the PS3 was being released, there was a tech demo that showed the original intro movie for Final Fantasy VII, really upscaled and, prettified and made for the 7th generation of systems. However, Squaresoft, or Square Enix at the time, came out straight up and they said it was nothing but a tech demo. We just want to show what this is and what we can do. But a lot of people thought this was going to be a remake. And Squaresoft, or I keep saying that, Squaresoft originally did it, but then Square Enix, because they merged with Enix, they're the ones who are, working on it now and everything. And they've said multiple different things. At first they said we're not going to do remake, and then they said we're not going to remake Final Fantasy VII until we make a Final Fantasy that's better than 7. And most fans pretty much said, okay, that means you're never going to remake Final Fantasy VII. But then they also said that they were going to be releasing it on PS4. And I believe that was earlier this year. But what happened was the game that might have been about a year ago. I think it was in 2014. Essentially what ended up happening was the game that they announced that was Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 4 was just the PC version being re-released and ported over to the PS4. So it was going to be the same original 1997 graphics, gameplay, everything. It was not going to be a remake, it was going to be a port. That's all that it was going to be, and people were up in arms about this, as they should have been. However, at this year's E3, they did finally announce that there's going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is the official title for it, and people were ecstatic and hyped, and people were crying in the theater from what I saw, because this is really a game that, let's think about it, here, as I said, it came out originally in 1997, and since then, people have been asking for more. And we've gotten teased, we've gotten Crisis Core, we've gotten, Dissidia, we've had the Final Fantasy VII characters in Kingdom Hearts, we've had Advent Children, we've had every single thing related to Final Fantasy VII exploited, except for a true remake of the game. We haven't even had, true remasters. They've really just been ports and kind of upscaled and everything. So right now, there is actually a Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 4, and it is called Final Fantasy VII Classic, which, as I said, is just a port of the PC version, which that is just a port of the PlayStation 1 version. So essentially, you have a PS1 game running on the PS4. That's really all you have. Now, people want this game remade for different reasons, and a lot of people also don't want it to be remade. One of the most common things I've heard is you should just play the original, and at the same time, I've also heard people say, you play through Final Fantasy VII once, and you understand the story. It's a long game. It's not like a short game where you could replay over and over and over. Now, I kind of agree with that to a point. I myself do replay longer games, but there's also many big Final Fantasy VII fans who have replayed this game multiple times over and over again. And that's just because they love the game or they want to replay for various reasons, and that's all on their own thing. Now, I really do enjoy Final Fantasy VII. I think it is a great game, and I love what it did with the series, but this remake has been a bit controversial. First off, with the gameplay itself, now they're going to have dubbing and everything, which they're going to have the characters talk, which, as you all know, or might not know, they had no talking, like vocally talking Final Fantasy characters until Final Fantasy X, which even back then, a lot of people complained about it in 2001 and and said, I don't want to hear the characters talk. I want to make up my own voices in my head. So I was actually kind of surprised that I didn't hear a lot of backlash about that, but point is they do have, the English dub already in the works, which means that it is pretty far along right now. And the biggest complaint that I have seen so far, before this big one that I'm going to touch up on, is the fact that the gameplay has changed. Final Fantasy VII and all the games up until Final Fantasy X, I want to say, were just true turn-based combat. Now, this is not turn-based combat. This is going to be a real-time action-adventure-style combat game, which I personally welcome that. Now, my logic is with that, I think this is great as a starter. If you've never played the Final Fantasy VII game, this is a great new adventure for people who are newcomers to start out and, check out the game with a fresh stance and everything on the series. So, for example, my younger brothers have never played Final Fantasy VII. I'm sure they would love this remake if they got their hands on it. It would be a lot less archaic than, the older version that's still good, but a lot of things just honestly don't hold up against the test of time, unfortunately. And I think this is what people would have wanted in 1997. If they saw this game, the 2015 game in 1997, they would have flipped out. But granted, we got the 1997 game in 1997. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And for people like me and several others across the world who have already played through Final Fantasy VII, this is a refreshing new take at the game. I have played through Final Fantasy VII, with the old school fighting system and everything. That's cool, but it also got on my nerves a lot of the time. I would love to go through Midgar in a fully rendered 3D beautiful breathing city. I would love to play through it, with this new type of action system, because I'm a big fan of the Kingdom Hearts series, and this to me just looks like Final Fantasy VII with a Kingdom Hearts battle system on there, which personally I don't have an issue with. And to anybody that does have an issue with this, I tell them, well, you could buy Final Fantasy VII Classic on the PS4, or you can emulate the game, or you can dust off your PS1 or 2 or 3 to play it on there, or you can buy the PC version if you want to play the original one. In fact, the PC version, you can mod the hell out of it so that it is, a refreshed new type of game, except it's still the core Final Fantasy VII right there. So if you're not wanting that change, the remake is not for you. But the biggest part that I've not talked about here, over 7 minutes into this commentary, is the fact that they are going to be putting this out as an episodic game. Now, for anyone that does not know, Final Fantasy VII was huge at the time because it came out on 3 CD-ROM discs. So this game itself is, I want to say it's over 2 gigabytes in size on the PlayStation 1, and that was absolutely huge back in the day, just completely mind-blowing to people. And it's still, quite a big feat looking at the PlayStation, comparing it back then and now and everything like that. So a lot of people, including myself, are kind of thinking it's probably going to be 3 episodes. And a lot of people are also mad about this because the company has been, Square Enix has been so flip-floppy with this. They're not being straight up. They waited until all the hype died down, just a tiny bit. It was hyped, and then about 24 hours later, they said, oh yeah, we're going to make it episodic. Then they came out and they tried to damage control it, and they said, well, we're going to make an episodic game because there's too much game. That's it. There is too much game, and we want to get the game out to you as soon as we can. And the only way we can do that is if we release it in segmented episodes. So the good thing is with that, though, is we're going to be redoing a lot of the game. We're going to be bringing in new things, and we're going to even add more story to the game and new things that weren't there. So now there's a lot of people that are saying, well, wait a minute, you just said there's too much game. But now you're saying because you're going to split it, you're going to add more game to it? That doesn't really make any sense. And honestly, we're not going to see anything with this until the first episode is launched on this. Plus, we don't know how the pricing tier is going to work. If I can predict anything right now, I'm going to say that I think the optimal situation for this, because we know it's going to be episodic. We know that already. But I think the optimal setting for this would be release it in 2 or 3 parts. If it's 2 parts, $30 a part. If it's 3 parts, $20 a part. That way, no matter what, the game will equate out to $60, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price of one brand new game in 2015 or 2016, whenever you're watching this. And at the same time, I think the episode situation can work out in favor of a lot of new people, because there's a lot of people who want to play this game, but they're not sure if they want to dedicate all this time to a old school Japanese RPG that could rank in at, you know, 50 to 100 to 150 hours. So that way, a lot of people, they'll be like, well, I want to play Final Fantasy VII, but, oh, it's not $60, it's $20 or it's $30. You know, I'll put that down. And then that way, if they play through the first episode, they really like it, they'll be waiting for the other episodes. But they have to do this properly as well, too. They got to get the pricing down, and they have to put down some type of schedule. I myself am a person that played through Life is Strange. I played through most of the Telltale games, and while I think they are all great, the thing that really hurts them and kills them at the same time is that they give you these 2-hour chunks of gameplay, and sometimes you'll get it within a week. So for example, Minecraft Story Mode, episode 1 came out. 1 week later, episode 2 came out. That was a mind-blowing record, and it was not announced or anything, but that was just a record fast time for Telltale games. But then there are other games, for example, The Wolf Among Us, episode 1 came out, and I think it was, I don't remember if it was episode 2 or episode 3, but point being is there was an episode that came out, and we didn't get another episode for another 3 or 4 months. And Telltale came out and said, that is our bad, we apologize so much for that, this is never going to happen again, you will never have to wait that long for delay. But point being is, that was a really long delay right there. So we might have to see something where they say, okay, we're going to release this 2 or 3 part segmented game, and we are going to be releasing the parts every 2 months, or every 3 months, or every 4 months, whatever it is. Even if they could do something like with what Resident Evil Revelations 2 did, where they sell this game at a discounted price overall, and I think it was a 5-part game, and I want to say they released each part every week or every other week. I want to say it was every week, so within 5 weeks you had the entire game still at a discounted price, which worked out pretty well. People weren't very sour about that when they actually saw Capcom's plan of action, and they went through with it at the same time. But how do I feel about this episodic thing? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. First off, I'm in support of this remake. I think it is something that's a long time coming, because for anybody that says, oh, well, there's enough remakes here, we need to stop with the remakes. Listen, people have wanted a Final Fantasy VII remake since Final Fantasy VII came out. I mean, maybe not that soon, but I remember when the PS2 came out, when people saw what Final Fantasy X could do, people wanted a Final Fantasy VII remake. When we saw the tech demo, and when we saw what the PS3 could do, people wanted a Final Fantasy VII remake. And again, we're going into another generation right here, Generation 8 for game systems, and people were still asking for a Final Fantasy VII remake. So if anything, out of all the games that deserve to be remade, Final Fantasy VII should be number 1 on that list, and then put anything else underneath it. Because if it's a game that came out 1 or 2 years ago, no, it absolutely does not need to be remade. But Final Fantasy VII, just appease the fans, please. There's a lot of people that want it right there. People have been begging for it. So for anybody that complains, it was the fans that asked for this. It was not the company that was asking for this. But I also do feel like Square Enix did this because they're not doing as well as they should be doing. I don't know how well Life is Strange sold, but that was a smaller game that was published by them. I don't think it made a whole ton of money. The Tomb Raider games came out, and while they are both excellent games, Rise of the Tomb Raider and the Tomb Raider 2013 reboot, they both didn't sell as well as people originally intended them to do so. 2013 Tomb Raider, I'm not really sure what was going on with that. I think they just spent a lot of money on that. And then Rise of the Tomb Raider, that was an Xbox One exclusive that came out the same day as Fallout 4. So you do the math and tell me how that did not sell very well. Or how it was supposed to sell well, excuse me. But pretty much what's happening here. My thoughts on this remake, I'm definitely going to pick it up. I really want to see what they're going to be doing, and I will be playing it. However, I don't know I don't know how it's going to work out. And my big fear with it is, no matter what they do, even if they split it up into episodes, I don't feel like an RPG should really be split up into episodes. Some people might be saying, oh, well, they're going to max out a Blu-ray disc. Okay, so make Final Fantasy VII be the first game that ships out on multiple Blu-rays. There has never been a game on the PlayStation 3, the PS4, or now even the Wii U or the Xbox One that has shipped out on more than one game, or on more than one disc. The only situation I could kind of think of are multi-game packages. For example, Bayonetta on the Wii U. When you bought Bayonetta 2, it also came with Bayonetta, and it was 1 game per disc. But granted, as I said, that was a game that you buy and it comes with a free game, and you get 1 game per disc. I have yet to see a game that is pressed on Blu-ray discs that requires multiple discs. So have Final Fantasy VII Remake maybe be the first game that comes out on Blu-ray with multiple discs. That would be a pretty awesome feat, even if they're dual layer discs. Okay, so you might have a 75 gig game, a 100 gig game, whatever it is, because for anyone that doesn't know, a 50 gigabyte dual layer Blu-ray disc disc is, well, that's what it is. It's dual layer, it's 50 gigabyte. The single layer ones are 25 because you split that in two, whatever it is. You all understand that. So I think that could work out as well too, and I think they definitely need to make a complete edition, which I'm sure they will do that. So I don't even know what I'm going to do for that, really. I might have to wait for that to come out, and I don't know if I'll be patient enough, to be honest, but I don't really want to get something that I've seen some other companies do, is like Telltale, where you do buy a game, a physical game, and it's the disc, but you only have like episode 1 on the disc. And then the thing is, you have to put in that disc to download the other episodes as they come out. So I don't know what they're going to do. I know they're holding a lot of stuff back like this on purpose because they are still in the works with everything. They're still working on it, and they're working out all the kinks. But at the same time, it's driving people absolutely mad, and it's making a lot of people lose faith in this remake, which is really unfortunate. I think it will be a stellar remake. I don't have any doubts of that. But the big doubts I have are the directions they're taking with the release of this remake, because I hope that they do a really good job putting it out and releasing it properly, but at the same time, I really don't know what they're going to do. As I said, I've never seen a RPG come out with episodes. That's it. Some people might say Final Fantasy 13, but no. Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13 were all separate games, and they were sequels upon one another. It was not like Final Fantasy 13 was released and broken up into 3 chunks, even though on the Xbox 360 it did come on 3 separate discs. They did release it as one individual game and package. That was a complete game. No matter if you liked them or not, each game right there was a complete game, whether it was a sequel or not. This right here is one game, and they are going to be chunking it up and dividing it into different parts. So personally, I don't really know what... I want this to succeed. I do. And I want people to be happy with it, but I know a lot of people are mad already because of the gameplay, and then this is just adding on to the fuel more. And there are also a bunch of fans as well, too, that have really damage controlled it, and they said, well, you know, this is going to allow Square Enix to give us the game that we've been wanting, and the game that we deserve, and the game that, you know, they are wanting to see in their artistic vision, everything. They can add so much more, and I don't know how much they're going to add. I really don't, because as I said, first they say there's too much game, and then they say they're going to add more gameplay, so I don't get it. I really don't. But point being is, that's what it's going to be. I think what they should do when they release this, the final copy of the game should not exceed more than $60 if you buy all of the packages available. When they do make it episodic, they need to have a strict playthrough, and they need to have a strict setup for, we're going to release an episode every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever it is. But this is also going to drive the people mad who are going to marathon it, because you can bet your bottom dollar and guarantee there are going to be people who they will get this game at midnight when it unlocks, and they are going to be marathoning it for about 48 hours. And I don't think there's going to be 48 hours worth of gameplay per episode. I honestly don't think so. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Let me know what you all think of this.